Let's talk about this idea of acting as if everything will always work out for you, because at first glance it sounds like wishful thinking. It almost sounds irresponsible, like you're ignoring reality. But I want you to hear me carefully. This is not about ignoring problems. This is about choosing the state of mind from which you confront them. There's a profound difference between walking into a situation expecting defeat and walking into that same situation expecting resolution. One creates paralysis, the other creates momentum. When you act as if everything will always work out, you are not saying life will never hand you difficulty. What you're saying is, no matter what comes, I will posture myself as someone who is not destroyed by it. This posture changes how you think, how you feel, and even how you behave in the smallest details of your day. Think about it. If you deeply believe that everything was working in your favor, how would you show up at work? How would you speak to people? How much more courage would you have to try to take risks, to endure temporary discomfort for the sake of a bigger reward? Psychologists talk about something called self-fulfilling prophecy. If you expect failure, your actions, your tone, and even your body language often lead you exactly there. But if you act as if the outcome is already secured, you begin to behave in a way that pulls that outcome toward you. This isn't magic, it's mindset. You see opportunities because you're not clouded by fear. You persevere longer because you've already convinced yourself that the finish line is there waiting. You radiate a confidence that makes others want to cooperate with you. What once looked like blind optimism is actually a disciplined perspective that keeps you moving when everyone else stalls. Now let's make this more personal. Imagine two people applying for the same promotion. One goes in thinking, they probably won't pick me. I'm not as qualified. If I get rejected, it'll just confirm my doubts. The other walks in saying, this position was made for me. I carry myself as if I already belong here. If they don't see it today, I'll create another opportunity tomorrow. Which one do you think is more likely to project confidence in the interview? Which one do you think leaves a lasting impression on the decision makers? It's the one who acted as if it would work out. Even if they don't get that exact role, they are still moving forward because they believe in eventual victory. There's also a spiritual dimension here. Throughout history, great thinkers, leaders, and teachers have emphasized faith, the assurance of things not yet seen, acting as if is faith in motion. It's standing on the conviction that even though you don't see the full picture, the picture is being painted in your favor. That conviction shapes your emotional stability. People who believe everything is falling apart often live in anxiety. But people who believe everything is falling into place carry peace even when storms come. That peace is not weakness, it's power, because it allows you to keep your head when everyone else is losing theirs. Now I know the skeptics question, what if things don't work out? And here's the truth, they always do, just not always the way you expected. Sometimes the door you prayed would open stays closed because another one you couldn't see was waiting for you. Sometimes the failure you dreaded becomes the lesson that sets up your greatest breakthrough. When you act as if you are not denying pain, you are declaring purpose. You are saying, I don't have to understand this moment to trust that it is shaping me for the next. And here's the secret, when you live this way, people notice. They notice your composure, they notice your resilience. They notice that you do not collapse under pressure. And that sets you apart in a world addicted to panic. People follow leaders who believe. They invest in workers who believe. They love being around friends who believe. Acting as if it's contagious. It spreads courage. So if you're listening to me right now, I want you to try something. The next time you feel fear creeping in, pause and ask yourself, if I already knew this would work out, how would I act right now? Then act that way. Walk into the room with that energy. Send the email with that conviction. Face the challenge with that confidence. And you'll begin to see what I mean. Life bends toward those who refuse to bow to despair. Don't wait for proof to believe. Don't wait for circumstances to validate your hope. Adopt the posture first and let reality catch up to your faith. The people who change their lives immediately are the ones who dare to act as if everything is already working in their favor. And if you will live from that place, not just think about it, but actually live it, you'll discover that what once looked like a mindset trick is in fact a life-altering truth. Let's move deeper into this conversation, because once you've positioned yourself to act as if everything will always work out, the next shift has to take place in the way you see the world around you. Most people don't fail in life because of a lack of ability. They fail because of a lack of perspective. They operate from scarcity. They live with this constant whisper in the back of their mind, there isn't enough. There isn't enough time. There isn't enough money. There isn't enough opportunity. There isn't enough room for me. That mindset becomes a prison, and the tragedy is that it is a prison with an open door. Scarcity keeps people small not because the world is small, but because their vision is. Now imagine the opposite, an abundance mindset. Instead of fixating on what's missing, you train yourself to focus on what's possible. Instead of seeing life as a pie where every slice taken leaves less for you, you begin to understand that life can bake another pie and another after that. Abundance says there is always more ideas, more opportunities, more ways to succeed. And when you live with that belief, your choices change. You stop clinging so tightly to the little you have because you know more is coming. You stop competing out of fear and start creating out of vision. You no longer walk into the room wondering if there's a seat for you. You build the table if you have to. Think of history's great innovators. They weren't necessarily the smartest in the room, but they saw possibility where others saw limitation. When the Wright brothers looked at the sky, most people saw gravity as a barrier. The brothers saw flight as a possibility. That's abundance. Scarcity says, we're bound to the ground. Abundance says, we're made to rise. That mindset difference is what separates those who wait for change from those who create change. There's also a psychological truth here. Neuroscience shows that when you focus on lack, your brain narrows. It triggers survival mode. Your vision gets tunneled, and you can't see beyond the immediate threat. But when you focus on possibility, your brain opens. Creativity flows. Solutions emerge. It's not that resources magically appear. It's that your perspective expands enough to notice what was there all along. Scarcity blinds you. Abundance gives you sight. Let's get practical. Picture someone who says, I can't start my business, I don't have enough money. That's scarcity. The abundance mindset reframes it. What resources do I have? What can I leverage? Who can I collaborate with? What small step can I take right now? Scarcity waits until the conditions are perfect, which means it waits forever. Abundance works with what it has, and as it works, more resources reveal themselves. That's why abundance thinkers move faster. They're not paralyzed by waiting for what's missing. And let me say this, scarcity is contagious. Spend enough time around people who talk in terms of limits, and you'll find yourself shrinking to fit their fears. But abundance is also contagious. Get around people who dream, who imagine, who create, and suddenly your mind begins to stretch. You start asking bigger questions, setting bigger goals, and seeing bigger possibilities. That's why you must guard your environment carefully, because your environment feeds your mindset, and your mindset feeds your destiny. Now, I don't want you to confuse abundance with naivety. This isn't about pretending the world has no challenges. It's about refusing to let challenges dictate your vision. Scarcity focuses on obstacles. Abundance acknowledges obstacles but keeps its eyes on opportunities. Scarcity says, I lost. Abundance says, I learned. Scarcity says, the market is saturated. Abundance says, there's always room for excellence. The difference is not in the facts, it's in the interpretation. And interpretation is what shapes your reality. Here's the part I want you to catch. Abundance is a choice. It's not reserved for the wealthy, the powerful, or the lucky. It's available to anyone who decides to see possibility instead of limitation. It doesn't require perfect circumstances. It requires a disciplined perspective. And once you make that choice, you start living differently. You invest in yourself instead of hoarding. You collaborate instead of competing. You celebrate others' wins instead of resenting them, because you know their success doesn't diminish your own. Scarcity says someone else's light dims yours. Abundance says another's light only makes the world brighter. So the real question is this: how do you see the world? Is it a battlefield where there's only one prize and everyone else is your rival? Or is it a field overflowing with opportunities where the only limits are the ones you place on your imagination? If you can shift your perspective from scarcity to abundance, you won't just change your attitude, you will change your decisions. And when your decisions change, your destiny changes. Here's the truth you cannot escape: you get what you look for. If you look for lack, you will always find it. If you look for possibility, you will always find it. So stop obsessing over what you don't have and start building with what you do. Stop waiting for permission and start creating the life you were meant to live. Scarcity locks you in fear. Abundance unlocks your future. Now, once you begin to act as if everything will work out, and once you've shifted from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance, there's another step you cannot afford to miss. It's learning to release your grip on the outcome and anchor yourself in the process. This might sound simple, but it is one of the most difficult shifts a person can make, because we live in a culture addicted to results. We measure our worth by outcomes, by whether we got the promotion, whether the business scaled, whether the relationship lasted. And when we don't get what we expected, we start to question ourselves, doubt our path, and sometimes abandon it altogether. But the truth is, this life doesn't change when you obsess over results. Life changes when you learn to give yourself completely to the process. Think about it. A seed planted in the ground does not sprout overnight. You don't keep digging it up to check if it's growing. That would kill it. You water it, you nurture it, you protect it, and you let the process unfold. But many of us treat our goals like that impatient gardener. We plan a dream and then keep pulling it up to see if it's working yet. The more we demand immediate results, the more we sabotage the very process that would have produced them. When you focus on outcomes, you place your peace in something outside your control. But when you focus on process, you reclaim your peace, because the process is always in your hands. You can control the effort you bring. You can control the discipline you apply. You can control how you respond to setbacks. And here's the irony: the people who stop obsessing about the finish line often reach it faster because they're not weighed down by anxiety. Their energy is free to flow into the present moment, where the real work gets done. Let's bring this closer to your life. Maybe you're trying to get fit, and you keep stepping on the scale every morning, discouraged because the number isn't moving. That's outcome fixation. The process focus says, did I eat with discipline today? Did I train my body? Did I keep my promise to myself? If you can answer yes to those questions, then the outcome will take care of itself in time. Or maybe you're building a business and you're fixated on revenue charts that don't reflect the hours you've poured in. You feel like giving up because the outcome hasn't shown up yet. But the process focus asks, did I serve my clients well today? Did I build systems that will make tomorrow stronger? Did I plant seeds that will bear fruit later? When you answer yes to those, you can rest knowing the results will eventually align. There's a deeper wisdom here too. Process shapes you in a way outcomes never can. Outcomes reward you once. The process refines you daily. The process builds resilience, character, and skill. If you hand someone a trophy they didn't earn, they may feel good for a moment, but it won't change who they are. Put them through the grind of practice, discipline, and perseverance, and now that trophy means something because they are not the same person who started the journey. When you learn to love the process, you stop rushing toward outcomes because you realize the real treasure is who you're becoming along the way. And this is where freedom comes in. When you detach from outcomes, you can take risks without fear of failure. Why? Because failure is just part of the process. It's not a verdict, it's a lesson. Every obstacle becomes training. Every delay becomes preparation. Every setback becomes shaping. You stop asking, did I win yet? And start asking, what did I learn today? That question alone can turn your entire perspective around because it guarantees growth no matter what the scoreboard says. This mindset also protects you from comparison. When you're obsessed with outcomes, you can't help but measure yourself against others. But when you're focused on process, you understand that everyone is on a different path, at a different pace, with a different purpose. Your job is not to outrun them. It's to outgrow yourself. That shift liberates you from envy and frees you to celebrate others because their outcome doesn't diminish your process. So let me ask you this, what are you clinging to right now? What outcome are you so desperate to see that you've forgotten the process shaping you in the present moment? If you can let go of your obsession with results and embrace the daily grind with gratitude, you will find yourself progressing in ways you never thought possible. And when the outcomes do arrive, and they won't just satisfy you temporarily. They will reveal the person you have become through the process. Now, let's talk about something that every one of us encounters: obstacles. No matter how much faith you carry, no matter how abundant your mindset, no matter how committed you are to the process, life will test you. That is not a possibility, it is a guarantee. And this is where most people stumble. They see an obstacle and assume it means stop. They see resistance and assume it means they're on the wrong path. But what if the obstacle is not a barrier at all? What if it's the very thing designed to build the strength you need for where you're going? You see, when you reframe obstacles as opportunities, everything changes. What once looked like opposition becomes preparation. What once felt like punishment becomes promotion. The struggle you want to avoid is often the very soil in which your growth is planted. Think about it. A muscle only grows through resistance. Without the weight pressing against it, it remains weak. In the same way, your character, your resilience, your creativity only develop when life presses against you. The obstacle is not your enemy, it is your trainer. But here's the problem: our culture has conditioned us to equate struggle with failure. If it's hard, we assume we're doing it wrong. If it's delayed, we assume it's not meant to be. Yet history tells us the opposite. Every great story, every breakthrough, every invention, every transformation came through someone who decided that the obstacle in front of them was not the end of the road, but the beginning of a new path. Let's make this practical. Maybe you're building something, a business, a career, a relationship, and you keep hitting setbacks. Scarcity mindset tells you, this is proof you're not enough. Process mindset tells you, this is how you get better. And abundance mindset reminds you, there's always another way forward. The obstacle then becomes a teacher, showing you weaknesses to strengthen, strategies to refine, patience to deepen. What most people see as a wall is often a mirror reflecting the very qualities they must develop to carry the weight of future success. There's a psychological principle here as well. Cognitive reframing teaches us that the way you interpret an event determines its impact more than the event itself. Two people can face the exact same hardship. One collapses under it, the other rises through it. What makes the difference? Not the size of the problem, but the meaning they assign to it. If you call it a dead end, it kills your spirit. If you call it an opportunity, it ignites your growth. The obstacle hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. And let's be honest, some of your greatest breakthroughs came disguised as problems. Some of the lessons that shaped you most deeply came through pain you would never have chosen. And yet, looking back, you realize it made you stronger, wiser, more compassionate, more disciplined. If you strip away the struggle, you strip away the growth. You can't have one without the other. This is also why you can't afford to run from obstacles. Because every time you do, you rob yourself of the very preparation you need for the future you're asking for. Imagine praying for strength but avoiding the very challenges that would give it to you. Imagine asking for success but rejecting the pressure that shapes you to handle it. You can't separate the reward from the resistance. They are part of the same package. Now let's get spiritual for a moment. The greatest figures in history, leaders, prophets, thinkers, didn't rise because life was easy. They rose because they endured hardship and refused to quit. Their legacy wasn't forged in moments of comfort, but in moments of crisis. If they had stopped at the first sign of struggle, their names would not be remembered. And the same is true for you. Your story will not be defined by the ease of your path, but by the strength you showed when the path grew steep. So here's what I want you to wrestle with. What if the very obstacle you've been cursing is actually the doorway to your next level? What if the delay you're resenting is actually protecting you from something you're not ready for yet? What if the resistance you're feeling is simply building the endurance you'll need when the opportunity finally arrives? Obstacles don't come to destroy you, they come to reveal you. They show you who you are and who you're becoming. The question is not whether obstacles will come. They will. The question is, how will you interpret them? Will you see them as stop signs or as stepping stones? Will you let them harden you into bitterness or shape you into resilience? That choice is yours, and that choice will determine whether you remain stuck in frustration or move forward in growth. So the next time life places a weight on your shoulders, don't waste energy asking, why me? Instead ask, what is this shaping in me? That one shift in perspective can transform your entire experience. Because the obstacle, when reframed, becomes not the enemy of your progress, but the engine of it.